Hey guys, it's John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. Welcome to IFYL, Inspiration for Your Life. I'm happy you decided to join me tonight. We have another great show for you, whether you're here at 9:30 at night, 9:30 in the morning, 12 noon, 12 a.m., or perhaps maybe just a 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. It makes no difference. Thanks so much for being here. I really do appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Really do appreciate that. And let's get right into the master topic, shall we? So we know what the weekly master topic is. We had it before. How to help others. We're on series 3, show 6. But more specifically, ladies and gentlemen, our granular topic for tonight is if you want to help someone, series 3 means our third year, our third set of shows, show 6, episode 5. What do you want to do? Well, why not ask the person how you can help them? It seems so simple, but why is it people don't do this? Just ask the person. People love it when you're genuine and you make that inquiry to them to actually make a request about their needs. People will be happy to share that knowledge, and it can spark a positive change, and you might just kindle a whole new friendship. So thinking about asking the person what they want, they might need help doing something. They might need help. There could be a lot of things they need help with, but what do you think it is? I'll tell you that a lot of times it's not the fact that people don't want to ask for help. It's that they don't know how to ask for help. That's probably one of the big things. All right, the next point I want to jump onto, and I think it's a really big one and a very important one, ladies and gentlemen, that is teach the other person's skills. How many of you ever heard the analogy of the story is, teach a man to fish? No, it goes this. It says, give a man fish, he will eat for a day. Teach him, and he will eat for life. Yeah, the exact parable quote is, give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. That was close. So, when we think about teaching, we don't just talk about fishing. We talk about other things in life. So, whether it's we're talking about money, or whether we're talking about health, or whatever it is, or maybe it's learning a new skill, if we teach you how to do it, as opposed to doing it for you, that's why in grammar school or in high school, they always say, it's going to hurt you if somebody else does your homework. And I always learned and respected that because a lot of my friends, they wouldn't do their homework. They would get their big brother to do it, or they had, let's say, the teacher's notes from the year or two before, and they just went right from those notes. And I can tell you, that wasn't the most fairest thing, but this is also why they didn't study. They knew the test that the teacher gave every year was the same test. Yeah, that's just, I don't know, guys. That's just a little bit bad, if you ask me. That's way bad. So teach a person skills. Empower them through your gift that you can give them of education. And we'll keep on giving, not just at that moment, but maybe later on. Let me give you an example. You guys know I'm an engineer, and I train people on technology all the time. If I did something for someone, I do this with my mom and dad all the time. It's like, I'm not going to do it for you. It's not because I'm being nasty. I want them to learn, so this way they're going to feel empowered. If I just do it for them and then they keep calling me, they're never going to learn. So by me saying, I want you to learn how to do it, it gives me a little bit of resistance, but they start to realize that the why of me doing it is for their greater good. But they fight it in the beginning, all right? Especially when people don't like change. So we can just understand that the knowledge that we impart from one person to another or to other people can spark positive changes. And with those positive changes, guess what can happen? Growth. Growth. That's pretty cool. So going back to that proverb we were talking about before, The origin comes from about the fish I was telling you about, from the Chinese, the Native Americans, the Italians, the Indians, the biblical. It's linked to the Lao Tzu, Metames, and the Mao Zedong. Um, and basically, the principle is to alleviate poverty by facilitating self-sufficiency as a long history. In the 12th century, the philosopher Metamones wrote about 8 degrees in the duty of charity. In 1826, they had a specific issue of the 8th degree, and it was published in a journal called The Religious Intelligencer. Yeah, I know, get that title. And the boldface had been added to the excerpts. So, lastly, the eighth and the most important part of it all is to anticipate charity by preventing poverty. Let me say that again. Anticipate charity by preventing poverty. So assist the reduced brother either by a considerable gift or a loan or money, or teach him a trade, or put him in a way of business, a path side of business where it will be plentiful, so that he may earn an honest living and livelihood and not be forced to dreadful alternatives of holding up his hand for charity. So this is important. As we said before, if you give a man a fish, he's hungry again in an hour. If you teach him to catch a fish, you do him a good turn. Let me say this again. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So if you give a man a fish, he's hungry again in an hour. If you teach him to catch a fish, you do him a good turn, he'll never be hungry again. The quote of, give a man a fish and he will be hungry again tomorrow. Teach him to catch a fish and he'll be richer all his life. Let me say that again. Give a man a fish, he'll be hungry again tomorrow. Teach him to catch a fish and he'll be richer all his life. Pretty cool, right? All right. If you give a man a fish, he'll be hungry tomorrow. If you teach a man to fish, he'll be richer forever. That's pretty cool. So you give a poor man a fish and you feed him for a day. You teach him to fish and you give him an occupation that will feed him for a lifetime. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him to fish, you feed him for many days, for a lifetime. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and you feed him for his lifetime. Give a man a fish and you feed him one meal. Teach him to fish and he can feed himself for many meals. Give him a fish and he can eat, but teach him to fish and he can eat many days. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So it's better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. If you give a hungry man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for his lifetime. See, a lot of people don't realize that when we have these challenges, we're looking for easy way outs. And you don't want the easy way out. You want to learn, how do you make it work all the time? That's really the goal. But a lot of people don't understand that. My last point I want to cover tonight, pretty important, is be a non-judgmental listener. Well, that's a real boatload of words there. So when we're non-judgmental, we will unpack a big transformation. Okay? Active listening. And holding space for others without judgment. So you're just listening. Well, what do you think? I'm just listening. I had a friend one time, and I was telling somebody, he says, so what should I do? He says, John, it's your problem. You need to figure out what to do with it. I was like, well, what would you do? What I do wouldn't matter. What do you think you should do? And he was pushing it on me like, John, you need to figure this out on your own. He could have given me the answer, but he wanted me to figure it out. Now, it took me a few minutes. And he's like, well, would you do this or would you do that? I said, I don't know. Well, what would happen if you did this? This, and this. And he's like, is that a good thing? No. What would happen if you do the other thing? That wouldn't be any better. What about the third thing? What about the fourth? And you go through it. And so when we connect with people, the concept of being non-judgmental should be more than just a concept. It should be a way of life. Let me say that again. When you think about being non-judgmental, you should know that it is a way of life. It's not something you do just for today. That's true. That is the honest truth. So tonight, we've learned a lot of valuable things, right? One thing we've learned, which I think is amazing, is we've learned how our lives can transform when we do these few things. One, just start up by asking the person how you can help them. Two, teach the other person's skills, person's skills. And three, just be non-judgmental. I know you might know how to do it better than they do, and that's fine. But let them learn on their own. Let them come to that realization. Let them have that epiphany moment. Oh, I should have put them on the top, or I should have taken the bottom ones off before I took the top ones off, or something like that, whatever it is. And so each day, we get the ability to go on a journey, to talk with people, to connect with people. Some people it's easy, some people it's not. But does that mean you should stop the journey? No. Does not mean you should stop the journey. But if you do stop the journey, then you miss the potential of growing. So start out by asking the person, how can you help them? Teach the other person skills and be non-judgmental. So we talked about skills. It could be things like, how you're going to make money. Like if I was going to do fishing, how would I teach you how to fish? I would teach you where to look for the fish. I would teach you how to bait the hook, teach you how to know when the fish are coming. How do you take them in without losing them? How to be patient when you fish, because there's a lot to fishing, ladies and gentlemen. You don't just sit there and catch a fish. So I want to ask you something. How long do you think it takes to catch a fish? Well, about 20 to 30 minutes. I know you're saying, John, that's a long time. Yeah, I know. It's a very long time. When you think about the concept of how to fish, let's go through that in a minute. So you go to a lake that's very well stocked, or a river or pond in your area, right? Like a secluded spot. And you find out what kind of fish are common in the nearby fishing spots. Then you get the right type of bait for those fish, right? Now you know what kind of fish you want to catch. And you fish at places near deep water or moving currents, because most big fish spend the days in deeper waters and come into shallow areas to feed. Let me say that again. Most big fish will spend their days in the deeper waters, but they'll come into shallow areas to feed. You go out at dawn and dusk to find more fish. See, the fish come out to feed during these times, so your best bet is for that haul. You can set your alarm for 4:30 in the morning. Not the most maybe fun part of your trip, unless you're an early bird like myself. But is it worth it? Yes, because they start biting early. Take advantage of early morning hours, especially in the summertime, to beat other fishers to your favorite spots. And if the thought of getting up before the crack of dawn makes you kind of like moan and all kinds of stuff, well, make evening plans. Head out to the water around dusk, and you can find plenty of fish in the shallow waters in the spring and the fall. Not bad, right? Contact an environmental health department for safety warnings. Unfortunately, water pollution means fish aren't always safe to eat. So make sure you know that you're fishing in an area you can and that they're safe to eat. Choose the appropriate fishing gear. Get a fishing license from a state. Some places require a license. You can call the department or visit them to pay for your license. And you need to get a license for every state or province you plan on visiting. A license from one area isn't valid in another. So people ask me, John, do I need a fishing license everywhere. Well, everywhere is very hard. If you don't have a license, there's a couple of things you need to know. Okay, number one is it illegal to fish without a license? Yes. It's illegal to fish without a license under most circumstances, although there are a few exceptions. So the regulations on who needs a fishing license are different in every U.S. state, so make sure you check them out. But there are some similarities. They require the majority of the people between the ages of 16 and 65 to have a valid license before they can head out to fish. Are there legal ways to fish without a license? Yes, there are legal ways. If you're a youth, then you can fish without a license in all states, but keep in mind that the age requirement for qualifying as a youth varies between states. So in most states, like I said, you can fish without a license until you're the age of 16, while Arizona provides the privilege only until the age of 10. So make sure you check your local regulations. And in some states, there are some groups that are exempt from having to get a fishing license. Youths under 16, seniors over 64, people with permanent disabilities, actively deployed military personnel, and veterans. But it's important to keep in mind that the details vary from state to state. For example, people over 64 are exempted in some states, but not in others. So make sure you check the gaming rules and laws before you head out to fish, because you don't want to have your day spoiled by an officer coming to you and telling you that you're not licensed to fish. So when can you fish without a license? If you belong in one of the categories that I mentioned before, on a free fishing day, when fishing on a charter boat or a licensed pier that takes care of the licensing requirements for you, or when fishing in a pond on your own private property. So in order to determine this, you have to do a little research. License-free fishing days are offered by all states and are intended as an opportunity for the general public to try out fishing for free. And you can see what it's like and if you want to continue or not. So can you fish without a license on private property? Most states allow you to fish without a license in ponds that are entirely located on private property, and if the pond has no stream inlets or outlets. Okay. Do you need a fishing license for catch and release? Yes, the majority of states require you to have a fishing license for catch and release. In fact, most of them require you to have a license just for attempting to take fish, which means you need to have a valid license just in order to cast your lure or bait out in the water, even if you don't actually catch any fish. Pretty cool, right? So just for attempting to take fish. What happens if you get caught fishing without a license? Well, if you get caught without a license, it can result in some fines in some states. And in some cases, you can even go to jail for repeat offenses. So if you're lucky and the officer catches you is in a forgiving mood, you might get away with just a warning. But in most cases, you can expect to get a fine, which can add up to a hefty amount of money in many, many states. What's the fine? You're probably saying, oh, it's like $20, $50. No, guys, a little more than that. So fine for fishing without a license varies by state to state, and it can range as low as $15 for a fine in Iowa right now for catching an endangered, for a basic fine in Iowa, to $2,000 for trying to catch an endangered fish species in Massachusetts. In most states, the basic fine is about $50. And while this doesn't sound like a huge deal, in many states you'll also be charged an additional fine for every fish caught without a license, which can add up to hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So, in conclusion, it's illegal to fish without a license. Go get yourself a license. So you might be asking me, hey, John, how much does a fishing license cost? Well, let's take a look at that. In New Jersey, because that's where I am, you can buy a license to fish and wildlife. You can do what they call resident fishing for $22.50, which is 16 to 64. Senior resident fishing is $12.50. Is 65 to 69. And then more info on resident trout snap is $10.50, 60.69, and then there is non-resident fishing, which is $34. So if you're trying to come to the area and you don't live there, well, you're going to pay a little more money. So there is a website, dep.nj.gov. That's Department of Environmental Protection.gov. And there's a whole bunch of stuff there that you can read. You can buy a hunting or a fishing license all online. So, for example, there's freshwater fishing, there's hunting and trapping. Let's go to freshwater fishing for a moment. So, resident fishing in New Jersey, 16 to 64 is $22.50. Not a lot of money. Non-resident fishing license is $34. A 7-day vacation license for non-residents is $19.50. So, fishing licenses and trout stamps are valid from the date of purchase to December 31st of each year. So you want to get your license in January so you can have it as long as possible, right? You can save about 50% when you buy with a friend or a family member. Boat permits are $15. So there's lots of things, you can think about. But I think the big question I want to say to you is that just go get yourself a license, right? And when you do that, you're going to do the right thing. So tonight we learned a lot. How do you help others? So if you want to help a buddy learn how to fish, well, make sure you make sure that he or she knows that they got to get a license before they go fishing, unless they're on some boat or in their backyard, right, on private property. So we learned tonight that if you want to help someone, just open up your mouth and ask them, hey, buddy, Joe, what can I help you with? Or how can I help you? Teach the person a skill. And, of course, be non-judgmental. Hey, guys, do you know who I am by now? Of course you do. But in case you don't know who I am, I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. And, of course, you guys know that I am a, podcast host and a podcast coach. And I'm a specialist in helping businesses tell a story that leads to them growing and being more scalable and, of course, more profitable. I typically work with companies that bring in $10 million or more, and they want to find the truth about who they are, their story. I can help them find it, or I can use the story they have, but I will make sure the story that they believe is truth if I didn't come up with it. All right, guys, have yourself a great rest of your night. I'm going to catch you real soon.